Let's bring in Andy McCarthy now, former assistant U.S. attorney and a Fox News contributor. Andy, great to see you. I want to put up on the screen the Mar-a-Lago raid timeline and how we got here and what we have seen transpire. January 2021, the events leading up to this moment. Donald Trump departs the White House shortly before Biden is sworn into office. He takes with him, Trump does, an undisclosed number of boxes containing classified documents. It was late in 2021 then when the National Archives and Records Administration, the agency tasked with preserving federal government records, contacted representatives of the former president. It was shortly after, January 2022, correspondence with the NARA, that then Donald Trump returned 15 missing boxes of classified materials from his time in office. That leads us to June of 2022, when DOJ officials then traveled to Mar-a-Lago, we're told, to meet with lawyers representing Trump regarding these additional missing documents. And that brings us to August of 2022. Those talks break down. The DOJ pursues a search warrant, and the FBI executes this raid that happened 48 hours ago. So now, here we are, Andy. What questions do you have?
Well, I have two in the main. One is how much overlap is there between the timing of the execution of this search warrant and the broader investigation the Justice Department is doing in connection with the events of January 6th, because I don't think the two can be separated out. What happened at Mar-a-Lago is not in isolation. It's part of a pattern that goes on for about 6 weeks that begins with search warrants on a couple of Trump-related lawyers who were involved in January 6th and continues, Sandra, even the day after the Mar-a-Lago search warrant, with this search warrant that was extraordinary, that was executed on Congressman Scott Perry for his cell phone. He's one of the Trump allies in the House who was very much involved in the Stop the Steal campaign that surrounds January 6th. So I don't think these things can be separated. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that the search that they did at Mar-a-Lago, when I say it's pretextual in the sense that they want evidence for more than one matter, I'm not saying that they were fraudulent in any way in getting the search warrant. What I'm saying is I think they're more interested in January 6th than they were interested in what they were, what the reason for the warrant was, which was the classified information and the government records.
Are you surprised at all by the former president pleading the Fifth?
I'm not surprised by it, but I just think it's more significant than, than we may assume. In criminal cases, when somebody takes the Fifth, the judge tells the jury, you can't draw any negative inference about that. You have to pretend like, put it out of your mind like it never happened. Mm-hmm. That's not really the way it works. In civil litigation, when someone takes the Fifth, you have the right to take the Fifth if you think a truthful answer could incriminate you. But there's a cost to it because the fact finder can draw a negative inference against you. So the cost-benefit analysis that you have to go through is, am I going to be more damaged in the litigation by staying silent, where there's a real cost to that, than I would be if I gave information? So I think it's a bigger deal in a civil case when somebody does not agree to testify.
I just want to finish off with the Wall Street Journal editorial board this morning and their piece, a firm warning the FBI's dangerous search, it says, at Trump's Mar-a-Lago. This search may be a fishing expedition, says the board there, to find evidence related to January 6th. To your point, Andy, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred only about 90 days from a national election, also increases the political suspicion. The FBI search on Trump suggests that Garland may be committed to pursuing and indicting Mr. Trump. If so, he is taking the country on a perilous road. Your final thought on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think it would be very easy, Sandra, for the Attorney General. I understand he's not going to want to confirm details of the investigation and tell us, like, the underlying information, but they could give us a timeline where they said, look, we tried to be reasonable with these people. First, we asked them for the documents back. We went back down there to talk to them about it. Then we gave them a grand jury subpoena. They still wouldn't give it to us. And finally, we had no choice, because this is national security information. We had to get it, so we had to do a warrant. How hard would it be if they had that kind of an explanation? how hard would it be to give it?
Yeah. Andy McCarthy, thank you very much. You've been joining us throughout this. Appreciate
Thanks,
your
Sandra.
time. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.